Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. Tonight we have three of the Riptastics here. We have Ricky Brule.
I'm on the drums tonight.
You're on drums tonight? Well, good. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. But you stole cowbell away from our other guest here, Ashley Kurtenbach. More cowbell.
More cowbell, always.
And I want to say Kelly Lovelace is not here today, and I want to send condolences to him because his dad died. And so I just want to say we're thinking about you, Kelly.
Yeah.
And then we have Rick Hanson, who is trying to be, at least I'm not Meatloaf right now. You know, I'm heaven can wait.
Huh?
I'll be old Bon Jovi. No, it's interesting because I call you guys up with these crazy topics and questions, and I said, we've all seen the reel from Ted Lasso, "Be curious, not judgmental," and it's funny because I've been, how when you buy a car and then all of a sudden you see 10,000 cars of this,
Yes.
Nobody had a Nissan Xterra until I bought one, and now I see them all the frick over, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because when that reel came out, then I started feeling, I knew people were judgmental, and this is one guy that didn't give a darn. Right now, I probably don't as much as I used to when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it a lot, and I'm going, how do we change people and make this a better world? Because there is not, some judgment is not bad, but being judgmental and not curious, we don't know what that other person is going through.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how many people have you walked up to and went, holy crap, that one surprised me. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that to come out of their mouth. Like, they knew that, I always felt, when I was a kid, I always felt like everybody thought you were a hick because you grew up in the country or went to a small town. And, but which is funny because I read a lot of books. Yep. And knew a lot more than these people did, but I always felt judgment against me for some reason. And, and when you're in high school too, or you're growing up, I felt like when you're trying to get in the dating scene, and plastic surgery will never help this. If you watch this on YouTube, you'll understand, like, nothing. Yep. So I always felt judgmental about myself because I felt everybody was thinking, he's an ugly dumbass. I always felt like I was a fat kid.
You thought that. People didn't say that.
No, they didn't, but I felt it.
Oh.
But that's where I'm going with the judgmental thing. I felt like the fat kid that was always fun at the party, but I was still the fat kid. I really wasn't fat, but you know what I mean.
Okay.
But where I'm going with this, I'll get back to, I think, because I've seen a lot of judgmental people lately that I want to go up and say, you can't change people. If you changed the way the judgmental people wanted you to change, they'd still never be happy. It's one of those things. And I wrote down a few notes, but judgment will never allow us to be the best version of ourselves if we aren't curious, if we don't ask these questions. So I just wanted to go like, I have another funny one, and I'm going to take this from one of our, I watched this YouTube video and stuff, but it also came from a U.S. Supreme Court justice. And he said, judgment is a lot like pornography. It's hard to define, but you know when you see it. You know, you know it, but there's judgment. And I've been feeling this a while with a few people that I just want to know, what do you guys think about being judged or seeing these people that are judgmental? Because I don't think old people should be so judgmental until they look at themselves.
Yeah.
You're driving 20 miles an hour down the road. I'm going to be judgmental about you too.
Well, I think we naturally, I don't know where I learned this. I learned this years ago, but we naturally judge people subconsciously without even thinking it. Yeah, there is times where you're actively thinking and saying things out loud when you're judging people, but you are all the time. Just walking through a crowd of people, you're literally looking at every single person, whether you realize it or not, and judging them. Like how in depth that judgment goes is different. But I think it's human nature that we just automatically do it. It's how we respond, probably verbally, maybe is what you're getting at. And like you were judging yourself, thinking that was everybody else's thoughts about you, but that was just your internal dialogue of your own judgment.
It was.
So, I mean, again, it's human nature to do that, but to what length? To make the world a better place, you probably just got to keep your mouth shut. I mean, for some of it.
Yep. Yeah. I was thinking the exact same thing. I think that, people just maybe need to learn to keep some of their thoughts internally. And then again, it goes back to the lasso thing, like Rick was saying, is be curious instead of judgmental. So, to kind of, let's go back to, I think maybe part of, you might be going into this, Rick, but I think part of what kind of brought some of this up was the hike that you did. And, when you told me that you guys didn't make it to the top, like right away, I started thinking like, what the heck, because you said we got really close, but we didn't quite make it. And I'm thinking immediately, my thought process in my head, and I think this is going to be for most people, just like Ashley was saying, is like your first thought is, man, all that time and all that effort and everything, but you didn't get there. And then the curiosity part, I think, is where people need to go, okay, well, before I start judging, what happened? Like what, so when you started to kind of lay it out, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? You have to, and I won't get too deep into it because maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that. But I that's just an example, I think, of where your immediate thought is to say that. And especially like, when you bring up, like seniors, I think that, see, we're kind of in a time where we're like transitioning more about where we actually kind of talk about things.
Yeah.
Seniors are just set. They're set in their ways. You know what I mean? Like, my grandma, before she passed, God rest her soul, I mean, there were some things that she would say where I was like, I'm like, Grandma, we can't be talking like that. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just, but you can't be at the same time, like you grew up in a different time, right? And so thankfully I will never have to worry about you saying something like that with me in public. Because I'm probably not going to put myself in that spot. But so I think Ashley kind of hit the nail on the head there with that one.
You're right, because I think like when I'll do the old people first and I'll go back to the mountain part. But you have to learn to have a filter these days, because there's a lot of things that people say, and it's mostly the older crew that they think they can say it because they can say it. And there's some things that you just need to keep your mouth shut. And they don't care about people's feelings.
No.
I mean, and there's some people, like, here's what I do. If you're going to be unfiltered with me and criticize me, I'm not going to be around you. I mean, and I don't care about constructive criticism.
No.
I'm talking about somebody that will find fault in whatever you do.
No, why would you waste life on that? You're not going to do that, because as we get older too, our circles get smaller, right? Our groups of friends, you want to hang out with people who elevate you, who
Mhm.
like can match you, right?
Mhm.
So you're not going to hang out with somebody, and if you are, it's toxic. It's toxic and it's detrimental to your evolution of yourself. You're not going to get better because they're just going to drag you down. There are definitely people that are constantly negative and constantly judging. And I think what we've mentioned, as you get older, you've lived your life. In our life, Ricky said it. Like, even where we're at, you've been through so much. This is what you believe. This is what you like. And you don't care. You stop caring what other people think. But yeah, I've definitely, not so much my dad, but my mom has definitely said stuff, and my grandparents for sure, where I'm like, yeah, we don't need to we could pass on that. We don't need to say that again ever, especially not in public, and it's not terrible things, but it's like they don't think about the repercussions that can happen, right?
No.
That can from saying something like that. Even if you think, oh, what somebody is wearing looks terrible, just don't breathe it into existence. Like, don't mouth it, don't whisper it, don't just just nothing. Just leave it. Let it just be a thought in your head. Just move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you there because of I don't care if you don't like what I'm wearing, and you're the fashionista of the whole group too. But I mean, I wear what Rick wants to wear.
Right. As you should.
And I don't care what other people would think about that. I wear things that are functional for me.
Right.
And for clothes wise, but I think that as with the old people, that like I've been around where my mom said a few things that I went, oh, you know what I mean, or whatever. But now I just don't. There's a part about being mean, somewhat, in some of the things that are said, though, being judgmental, like, you know what I mean,
Right.
or look at those ugly tattoos or whatever,
Well, they say there's some truth behind it, right? When you
Yeah.
say it, even if you're like, oh, well, I wasn't really that serious. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
there's probably some truth behind it.
Yeah. And like climbing the mountain part, I felt failure anyway. When we decided not to go, because I've never not finished anything. Never. We climbed 7 peaks last year. I've done the 5, done 6.
Mhm.
Everything's been easy, not easy, but tough, but finished.
Mhm.
This one was tough on me. And then for some people to say, you got that close and you didn't make it, well, you weren't there. And the people that are judgmental are usually the ones that are going to be sitting on the couch,
You had to be there.
be in the arm quarter. Yeah, you had to be there.
You had to be there.
You were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably couldn't even get a half a mile in from where we were. It took us, started at 6 and we finally got back to the vehicle about 3. I mean,
yeah, almost 12. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Almost 12 hours of walking. I don't think people understand.
No.
At that elevation, and you were not there early enough to acclimate, right? You didn't go out a day early where you just slept.
That was one of our problems, because somebody, I'm not going to mention his name, but Troy forgot his shoes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that, I'm not saying that was a problem, but it's funny.
It is a problem. No shoes is a problem.
So we had to go into Moab and get him shoes.
Yep.
Which is another 2 hours not being up in the elevation, or 3. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so we just got there, ate and slept, and we were off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd got a little altitude sickness.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little nauseated. I didn't want to eat anything, and a little lightheaded. And then there was snow, and that wasn't a great combination.
Well, I saw the bruise on your shin from that rock roll. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? I mean, yeah, one slip again, and you're done.
But you don't know how the rocks were. You don't know about other stuff. Yes. Did I think we could do it in May? Yep. Well, it's just about June, and there was just a little snow. So I'm saying we're by Moab. That's
down south.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But I've never failed. I did 100 climbs. I've done and I've had people there, and it didn't feel so much like I was failing myself as much as I was failing people. When you put it out on social media, you're climbing a mountain, and then you don't. But then that's why I put it out there. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and we all need to learn. And sometimes we lose.
You were passing judgment on yourself from other people that didn't even say anything.
And so, who's the judgmental person?
No,
I know. I know. Yeah.
It's and well, we've talked about this. I think we talked about this maybe not last fall hunting, but maybe the fall before. But we've talked about when you get in situations, you've had enough life experience at this point in your life. It's like, you have to ask yourself, is this stupid?
Yeah.
Is this because there's no one you need to impress?
No.
Like, honestly.
Not really.
It doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. The older we get, the easier that is to say. That's for sure. But it's you do have to sit back and, well, when we were briefly talking about hunting before we got on here, and you have to literally look at situations and go, because you start getting mentally weird. It's not just altitude, it's the wearing down of your body. And I don't think we even realize how fast it's happening, because I think when you hunt extreme conditions, you push through, and you have to take a step back, like almost out of body, third person, going, look at this scenario. If we were sitting on the sofa and we explain this to somebody, is this stupid? Like, is this situation stupid to keep pushing forward? Like, is it worth life and death? Like, to get to the top, would it be? That's not worth it.
No.
You'll hit another one. Who cares? You'll do 100 more.
And that's
it is what it is.
And that's where you had to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so. But
yeah, we talked a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, we talked a little bit about it in the previous episode too. Like, I think there's something to be said. There's a certain amount of wisdom that should be praised when you make a decision that, when you do avoid threatening conditions. I had the one, like I was saying earlier when we were talking, I had a trip up to the Boundary Waters, and it was a super windy wind coming out of the west the entire week. Like, I was out there for like 7 days, and I could not paddle myself against those waves. I couldn't. I tried to get out just to even do some fishing, and I couldn't. I was literally marooned out there until that wind died down. And first day I had a clear shot out, I bailed, and I bailed out 2 days early because I didn't want to risk. I was starting to run out of food. The temperature was starting to drop. It was getting to be a pretty risky situation. So it's just like, I didn't want to do it, and if I was in my 20s, I probably would have pushed through, and who knows, maybe got hurt, but I'm like, I can't risk it. I got to go, and so just understanding that. And then, after Rick explained it a little bit, it's like, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. And to your point, I wasn't there, you know what I mean? And if Troy I've seen Troy in some pretty heavy duty terrain. If he's freaked out, like, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So if I would have been 20, you're right, I would have probably pushed through, not given a darn. And if I would have been carried off the mountain, I would have been carried off the mountain. And that's was my mentality then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know that you were about stranded. Did you feel like Gilligan?
Little bit.
Yeah. I was just wondering there. I thought I'd lighten up the moment just a second. But I was listening, and I was can't think of the name, but I was thinking about this, that a lot of judgmental, like really judgmental people are actually narcissists.
I had that point written down. That's why I looked at my phone. Because because when you look at the root of that kind of opinionated, judgmental behavior, and you compare it between, which I think we've talked in another podcast about this, but confidence versus arrogance, and what causes that throughout your lifetime. There's roots to it. It could be
roots to it.
It could be upbringing. It could be, I don't know, a couple major events throughout your life. So I think that's a point.
Because I was listening to Ed Milet and gosh, I can't think of his name now. He was on Loveline. Dr. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. I don't know. I just
had a song coming.
But they were talking about the true meaning, the true definition of narcissism is being empty and unfulfilled. Because you're empty inside and unfulfilled, so you make yourself bigger. You're more boisterous, you're more judgmental because you don't have that yourself. Yeah. And that's why I think you're judgmental, because you have no confidence in yourself. And I started looking at the people that I've been really watching as judgmental, and I don't think they do have the confidence in themselves. Like, I look at you, I look at Ricky, I look at me, and I know because we've been on a mountain together, all of us. And there's differences of being a narcissist, and because we talk about things, and you can't, when you're judgmental, here's the other thing, you can't help people because you're judging them. You know, like, if you're curious about them, you can find out what their inner workings is. And then you can help them if they have a slight problem or something else. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I like to give and I like to help, and whatever I can do. And I don't like screwing up when I give and help, because, like, I don't want to help you out of the chair and then trip you and lay, have you fall on the floor. But I want to help people. That's why we do the podcast. This is why I wanted to do the judgmental thing, is because you can't be judgmental and be the best version of yourself.
No.
Well, okay, so I'm going to challenge that just a little bit. And the only reason I'm saying that is because, and this maybe doesn't fall within the same kind of defining version of what you mean by, being judgmental. But we briefly touched on the Myers-Briggs personalities. There's 16 of them, right? And so there's 4 different traits that make a person like their specific personality that they have. And without getting too deep into it, for anybody who's curious, you can just research it, Myers-Briggs, look it up. It'll give you some more details. But there's one trait, and it's you're either of judging personality or prospecting personality. And so I happen to be a J, or have a judging personality. But what they're saying is basically what fits that bill for the most part is that, like here's an example. I'll read it from this website I'm looking at. It says 66% of those with judging traits say they set specific goals that they hope to accomplish each day. And so when I think about somebody that might say, geez, I can't believe you went that far and you didn't finish, right? Because their mindset is all about setting a goal and then checking the box at the end of the day. And so they may forego their safety to make sure that happens. So I'm like thinking about what you're saying about narcissism and stuff like that. And obviously that all goes back to, probably some deep, something deeper, right? Something that happened in their life that kind of created that for them. and brought them into that realm. But to go back to kind of what you were saying, what was that last thing you said? You can't be judgmental.
You can't be the best version of yourself if you're so judgmental.
Okay. So, so then the other thing is it says like, the downside with that is some people may take it too far, right? Like those with the judging traits sometimes come across as really rigid, and most are not unreasonably stubborn, but and it says, I'm just going to read this verbatim. It says it's important to remember their need for structure always is a preference, and reality often calls on them to respond in unforeseen ways. And so again, like I think you can be you can have that judging personality type, but you have to learn how to keep it, like get some curiosity in there as well. So then that way, before you start blurting out whatever it is that your judger personality wants to say, you have to flex that muscle a little bit more to be more curious. And then in turn, I think you can then be living your best life.
Well, I look at it and it's interesting. I would agree with you there, but I look at it as if I'm judging somebody, I'm not going to go and I think that they might be different than me, and I do not go talk to them, but then I may have lost out on a friendly relationship, or who knows? I understand. Like everybody judges. I'm not going to say I don't judge. I'm not saying that it's wrong in some aspects because your appearance, you're going to judge somebody if they're coming to do a job interview. You're going to, because that's the name of the game. You have to judge who's going to be the best candidate for a job. You have to judge. But I'm curious enough to go, you guys both know, I'll walk up and talk to just about anybody. And who knows, if I was judging that person, I'll walk away if they turn out to be a dumbass. But how do we know until we go chat with them?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think what Ricky was kind of saying is with the judging like mentality, I think it's a thought process of how people work. When he brings up structure and things like that, it's a thought process of how you go through things. When you initially told him the mountain climbing story, his brain went to, this was the goal, this is the start, this is the this is the end.
Yeah.
Now we did 90%, but we didn't get to the end. And, maybe his thought process just doesn't even take into consideration all the other little things. It's just like, this is the start, this is the finish. Why didn't we get these steps? So maybe in that way of thinking, it's just a different process, right? But then when you're talking about, and you're almost talking about two different things, it's a thought process versus actually having judgment on people and holding that to them, whether you vocalize it or not. And Ricky's kind of talking about a thought process of things where in his head, he's judged not you, because you're kind of talking about judging, but he's judged the situation going, well, why would you not finish?
Yeah.
And not,
which is a reasonable question, right? Because I didn't even have to ask the question. He answered it without me even asking. But again, to just come straight out and, if you're, like you said, with that rigidity, and if you're not adding some empathy into the comment that you're making, then it can really come off like, like the way a senior probably would.
Yeah. Well, and it can be overbearing. It can be a very, when it's said without any, like, no regrets. You're like, whoa. Right.
Well, because it is funny, because Ricky is the thought process person, and I'm not. I'm the fly by the seat of your pants. Let's go see what happens. Just jump in the car. Let's go. Don't, Cindy is more the thought process person. Where are we going? I don't care. Just jump in the car, kind of thing. where
Mhm.
Ricky wants to know where he's going and how we're getting there.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Mhm.
And I'm the one, let's fill up with gas and see where we end up.
Yeah,
But
and there's a little bit of overlap there, sometimes, but generally speaking, I would agree with that,
and that's why we make a good team, because
Mhm.
you're more of the thought process and I'm more like, let's just do it, dude.
Yeah, and if you were to ask Susan, she would think because she's like a planner way more than I am. I like to
Holy
I
smokes,
like to
that's
go
what
with
I'm
the
married to.
flow. Relatively speaking, she would be like, "Well, you don't ever plan anything." It's like, well, okay, if I got a hunting trip or if it's something like that, I'm all over it, man. I am very detailed, right down to every little thing I pack is right where it needs to be, but then it's just like we go on a trip with the kids and she's like, if she didn't do anything, we'd literally show up at the beach and we'd have nothing. We'd have no toys for the kids to play with. We'd have no sunscreen. We'd have no bug spray.
Jesse's like, "What time are we leaving? Where are we going? What's the weather going to be? How many bags are we allowed to pack? Are we packing food or are we going to buy it there? How far are we going to go before we first stop for gas?" That's Jesse's process.
and I have to admit, this is a true story with your husband.
Yeah.
I do things because he is that way. And I like to rebel against him. I like to throw him off because it drives me nuts being so
rigid.
Mm-hmm. And I like to just, it's like when we went to Cody.
I do it every day to him. That poor guy is just like, I have a plan. I married a tornado. Like, if he didn't know how to adapt before, he's had to learn a lot now because it is not the same. We are not the same.
Well, it's funny because he's in trouble when we both go on a trip with him, because we went to Cody, and when we were on our way back, Cindy was there too. But, what are you guys doing? Well, there's snow over there. We're going to go jump in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a picture.
Then, needed the reasons why.
Yeah, and we went and did that. And then we get down into Buffalo, and he says, well, there's a nice sports shop down here. And we're right in front of it. We're going to go inside,
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I rebel against, it feels like I'm just rebelling. I don't know why. I just like to be
Well, you just want
free.
people to loosen up.
Yeah.
You're the personality that likes to come in, loosen people up, not be so uptight.
Hopefully.
We all need that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesse's had to, I've put him in a lot of situations when we've been out of the country. This is the problem. If I don't have a job and I'm on vacation, I'm not actively doing something, yeah, there's no telling. That guy has been so nervous so many times. He hates leaving the country. And then when I go off the resort and he's like, it's just balls to the walls. And he's like, what, hold on. What are we doing? Just loses his mind. It's bad.
We've talked before. I mean, I was in Jamaica and I've seen big joints and been in places where I didn't think
ARs
I should be.
in the bushes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But you want to hear something funny though, so I went up to Deadwood last Friday and I got Cody Jinks tickets. You're wearing a Cody Jinks shirt. I got Cody Jinks and Ward Davis tickets. And I pulled into the parking lot. This is no kidding. I'm walking down from getting tickets and I got a parking ticket. Okay. And I saw that guy.
Cop shop.
And I saw that guy, and it was a lady, and she just looked at me, and I knew I was wrong because I didn't do it. So I jump into my pickup and leave, and I didn't pay my ticket right then. And then it's like a little receipt,
Mm-hmm.
It's like that you can scan and then you can pay. I get home and Cindy and I went somewhere and I cleaned out my pickup and that receipt got thrown away. Okay.
Oh, crap.
So we took our baseball kids to Louis on Sunday to have a burger. Nice. And you've been to Louis too, haven't you, Ricky?
I think so.
All right. So Cindy's driving. And we drive into Deadwood and we're by the parking lot I got the ticket from. And we're coming up and the stoplight's red, and I can see across that there's a parking ticket guy. And I said, pick me up over there. And I jumped out of the car and went to ask him how I could pay my ticket. And Cindy's like swearing at me, and those
They'll
kids,
call you eventually.
you know what I mean? But just like, what are you doing? You know, you're jumping out in the middle of traffic here. I said, well, it was a red light. I saw him, and I needed to figure out how to pay this ticket.
Oh, so funny.
But Cindy's starting, you know, I mean, she's used to that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny because the two kids, I know what she was probably saying about me, and the two kids are in the car. Yeah, she's just probably going off. But that's the, you know, I mean, she's more of a, like.
See, they probably all judged you right away, but then they're like, actually, it's pretty smart. You just got it figured out.
And it scared the guy because I walked up to him and I said, hey, how do I pay my parking ticket? He said, you can challenge this. And I said, no, I got it the other day and I was in the wrong. I just need to know how to pay my parking ticket.
Yeah.
But it's where I'm going with that is like, it's funny, the rigid part, they probably judge me, but it is, I rebel sometimes against the rigid structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes that's me, but I want to get back into this. I'll circle back. And Ricky, you said something that I wrote down here that we didn't talk about older people. I'm saying older than myself. But
you're not in your golden years yet. Buddy.
No, I'm not. But our friends in the golden years will say,
yes.
How many of them, they're judgmental, but they also don't have empathy for people? I see a lot of people that don't have, a lot of golden generation people that don't have empathy for people. Like, and I think they're judging people because they aren't as bad off as that other person, so they can judge them and they don't feel sorry for them. Or they won't help them.
Or they've been through so much, they're like, I can judge you because I've been through it all.
Yeah, I just thought, Cindy and I were talking about that, the lack of empathy with older people. First of all, like we were talking earlier with the filter. You don't need to say some things loud. It's like, shut the heck up.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that person's going through. And you don't know what's going on. And if we can help them become a better person, better version of themselves, successful, why wouldn't you have a little empathy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we need to go give everybody $10 or whatever, you know, like standing on a street corner. I'm saying, and I'm not talking about prostitutes, I'm talking about...
Stick a left turn.
Where are we going here?
I'm talking a U-turn.
But I'm saying, like, some people need to help themselves out of situations, but I'm saying we could have empathy for situations.
Oh, yeah. Well, when they say I'm unapologetically myself, it's like, well, it's not necessarily a good thing. But I think people are doing that because, again, it's what you've been. It's what you've been through. It's what you've lived through, and you're talking about the older generation. Let's just take that to the younger generation, and all of us are like, you know, I bet you I take multiple phone calls a week that says nobody wants to work. So we judge them. We're like, why? Because they're working in 5th grade.
Yeah.
You know, working multiple jobs. All of us sitting here work multiple jobs. There's not a one of us that does one job.
Mm-hmm.
But take 20 years off our life, and a 20-year-old is like, well, I might 10 hours a week is probably all I have to give. Like, so you could, I mean, we judge that.
We do.
Yeah, but we do.
You know, we do. We judge it. And so we look at that. Why? Because of how all of us grew up. That is why. Because we worked young and hard.
Mm.
And so we say things out loud. Now, it's probably not as aggressive as what and rigid is what you're referring to
Yeah.
on certain subjects.
Mhm.
But we'll say, yeah, well, nobody wants to work or you don't work hard. There are some that do, but really, we're doing that
Well, that's true.
at this stage because of how our experience of life. Like I grew up a farm kid, you grew up a farm kid, you didn't have a choice of what you had chores. You might got to choose which ones, but you didn't have a choice. So
Yeah.
you were like it was beat into you from a young age, but now we judge, all that. I just had this conversation with somebody buying their first car too, or their kid's first car, You still see the same scenario as when we were in high school. Some kids have the nicer cars, some kids have the other cars. Kids still have to buy their cars. I don't know how you guys grew up, if you had to pay for part of it or your parents floated you money, whatever that looks like, right? But immediately you judge and you're like, why would your parents buy you a $20,000 car now?
Yeah,
I got a piece
Yeah.
of crap, you know?
exactly.
Mhm.
So we're doing it, but I don't think we're probably voicing it as aggressive as what we probably, I hope not in 30 years, 30 or 40
Yeah.
years. If I'm still walking this earth, I hope I have a filter.
I just so, and I don't mean for this to sound like our friends in the golden years are hopeless. I don't mean for it to
No.
sound this way, so I apologize. But the way I see it is, and just like I said with my grandma, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't gonna try to correct her when she was saying those
No.
things. I
No.
mean, you're kind of not to say again you're a lost cause, but it's just you're set in your ways. It's just the way it's gonna be. Like,
Yeah.
you might consider what I'm saying, but maybe my grandma would. My grandpa would just be like,
Don't you feel like when you're around somebody that is rigid with opinions like that, okay? And they say something and you're around and you've heard it equally with somebody else, you immediately are like, don't judge me. That wasn't my mouth, but I am with this person.
You do.
You get worried about judging and you're like,
mhm,
then if it's blood,
mhm.
it's probably worse because you're like cut from the same cloth,
Yep.
But there are people like our age that I may be like, well, dude, like, there might have been some people in the room where you're like, man, you really got to be careful about the things you say, like stuff like that, where I might, but some older folks, I'm just like, pat on the head and, it's all going to be okay, buddy. I don't know how else to say it, but that's immediately where my head goes, where I'm like, I don't know how you can change that. I'm sure you can, and you can try, but,
I don't think it'll ever change.
Yeah,
because they're old enough that they wouldn't, but you hear it, and that's just like, and I am judgmental. I'm not saying I'm not judgmental, but you're right on the working part.
I just hear it every week. That's why I bring that up.
But I do know kids that are working their asses off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that there aren't kids that aren't working their asses off.
No, there definitely is.
I've never, like, because I try to tell these people, and I've never seen so many people that are so sickly. And I'm saying, I was in high school, and if I got home late, and I was pretty good about curfews, but there's a few times I wasn't good about curfews. And it's raining out, so you don't think you're going to hay. And I was out I was changing rake tees at 6 a.m. with 3 hours sleep. And you learned a lesson. And we would learn lessons like you go out and you still work.
Mm-hmm.
You go have your fun and then you go work. And I think, well, all of us did that. And now it's like, I'm going to call in sick. Who cares? And that bothers me. Like, I've been kicked in the head and stomped, and I've broken just about an ankle and still kept on working. And I look at and I'm going, really? Like, you have a hangnail and you're going to want to go home?
That's what I'm saying. You're judging them.
I know.
You don't know the whole story.
That hangnail is pretty, yeah. And I'm not, like I said, I am judgmental in that area, and I'll go with that. I'm
We all
sorry.
are. It's human nature.
It is.
But to be the best version of yourself it does take willpower to just disregard it.
It does.
And we've talked about this before, how some people can harp on things and they replay it and replay it and replay it in your mind again and again and again. And that is, again, how people do that and fixate on. I am not one of those, because I will not remember stuff. Someone will be like, remember what so-and-so said about you? That was like a dig towards you. It's to your face. I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea. Just
Don't care.
oblivious. Like, I don't digest it. Like, it is what it is. And some people say things, or they say it wrong or incorrectly. And I'm not going to sit there. Even if you want to pass judgment on me, that's fine. Like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? We're not all going to be. So you can judge me. It's okay. I leave the judging to Jesus for the most part. So,
Exactly.
There you go.
On our judgment day.
yeah, exactly. Because I don't got to worry about it. It like people piss me off, and I'm like, you know what? Someday you're going to answer for that. So I'm just going to leave my thoughts in my head, and you're going to answer for it someday.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that, and I tell myself that all the time when I get really, really mad with somebody. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to answer for you. You'll have to answer for yourself eventually.
Yeah.
You know what
I mean, I believe in karma.
Oh, yeah. Big
I
time.
truly believe in karma.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like you said, I know people say stuff about me. I'm certainly used to that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't care anymore as much as I used to. I think there's at that point where you get your peace. And I was going to do a couple posts about this in the mornings. Is like, what has brought me peace is figuring out that I'm not invisible, figuring out that people aren't invisible, and helping those invisible people have a voice. And the other one was, geez, I had two of them, and it was like, I really am happy that I have confidence in how I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence is a big deal, and there's a point in your life that you have to figure out that you have confidence. And that's why I think that when we're so judgy, we don't have confidence in our, we have to have confidence in ourselves. It's an arrogant person, as we were talking earlier, that has to tell people they're good. It's confident people that don't have to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think, I just thought, like I said, I've been around all these judgy people, so yeah, I just thought this would be a great conversation to have with you, with Rick Tastics.
Well, and there's plenty of people out there that are even people pleasers. We all are, to a certain extent, some more than others, but it really bothers people on, like, certain personalities. It can really bother someone when somebody's judging them. And again, that's your experience in life, what
Mhm.
you've been exposed to, how you handle it, how you overcome it. And so I think, no, it is a good topic because everybody does care. And social media, that is 1000% proof that everybody cares what other people think because of what you put out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I snapped last week on the phone because I had dealt with a number of personal things that last week, and I snapped. And that person has no clue why. Just thought I was probably being a biddy for a hot second. Okay? So I
Yeah.
snaps. So, and it was a lot, and I was handling stuff. We had some family things. There's been a number of deaths like around me, and I was just, it was a lot to even process. And I'm sure the person on the receiving end of the snapping probably was like, holy crap. It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. It's not like I went off or anything like that. But again, when you say you don't know what you're going through, that is a prime example. And that can happen to anyone, anytime. It can change by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea. Just like Kelly last week. I mean, you have something that suddenly happens. You have no idea.
Yeah.
The rest of the world does not know what's going on. But yeah, we're going to judge somebody, or somebody just looks like absolute crap and you haven't seen them forever. Like, geez, what happened to them? God knows, you have no idea. So, I mean, we all judge, all of us. It's how you portray it, I think, into the world. And if you got the willpower to know when to say things and when to not, it's the under the breath things too that drives me insane. Like, why say that? Just don't say it. Just don't say it at all.
Yeah.
But people have this need to get it out of their system. And I have the hardest time when I go out to eat with people. This is I don't know if you guys have bartended or served or like bussed tables at all, anything like that. I've done loads of it. And when we go out to a restaurant and somebody if I'm sitting at a table with somebody and like, geez, this whatever. Well, a lot of times in the service industry, you don't get a day off. You don't get to call in. You don't, you have to deal with all kinds of personalities constantly. No one's ever not no one, but there is a good chunk that are not satisfied. I mean, you could never, there's some people you'll never please. And it's not just, but when I sit at a restaurant and somebody's like, well, geez, I'm like, come on. You don't know. What if that person has covered a quadruple shift in a row because somebody else decided not to show up and they're doing it for their employer, not just for themselves?
I've said this to some people where I feel like everybody should have to, like, when you become an adult, for you to go and eat at a restaurant, you have to take a test. And that test is that you have to work in the service industry for one day.
Yes.
That's anything. You have to be a checkout clerk at Target to shop there, so that you can understand what that's like. Because to your point, like I bartend and serve right now, 2 to 3 nights a week. And for the most part, most of the people are pretty good. And I think a lot of it has to do with your attitude too. Like I'm part-time, right? So it's not my main gig. So for me, it's a little bit of a reprieve almost, you know what I mean? And I sit and I talk to people and I, chum it up with them and stuff like that. And so it's not too much for me, but I see some of the full-time people and I just see them, they're just stressed out. They're angry. They're throwing out colorful language. They're not, they're complaining about their tips. And I'm like, well, why would they tip you well? You're not treating them well. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like this downward spiral, but at the same time, being in that space, like when if I have a server or somebody that is rude or it doesn't seem like they're, I give them the straight up standard tip. I don't usually change it unless they have to be really off the hook for me to, and in those cases, I might even actually like pull them aside and be like, dude, like what are you doing? Like calm down. But sometimes it's just that can change their day, right? Like if they're having a bad day, sometimes it's despite them having a poor attitude, giving them the standard tip or maybe even above might help with that. But then, so this whole thing started making me think about what you said about you're only concerned about the judgment from Jesus. And so then it made me go down this whole like rabbit hole of thinking about how, like all three of us, like I know deep down we're all very good people, right? But where are we probably the most judgmental? In our cars. You can argue this with me, but man, I have thrown out some pretty colorful things that people they probably have no idea, And it's funny because like there'll be some times where I'm like cursing at somebody that's driving what I would perceive as being bad. And then I go past it and it's like this little old lady, and then I'm just like, man, I'm sure she's a wonderful person. I'm sorry. Lord, don't judge me, like that, because I'm just like, oh boy, so there's been some moments where I'm just super angry, like road raging because somebody is going too slow or not driving to my standards or whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden you're just like,
you want to know how judgmental I am? Is literally did a speech class on old people driving. How frustrating it is. A whole speech. And I think it's recorded somewhere. Oh, I should ask my mom if she still has it.
Well,
That's funny.
But I think it was supposed to be influential, maybe, that we should take driver's license away sooner so that there's. I have no idea. But that is a valid point.
I agree. Didn't you see that stop sign? Can't you speed up? What the heck?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're trying to be the speed cop and slowing everybody down.
Driving in the left lane,
Yeah. Well,
under the speed limit.
and I've seen that in Spearfish. I've seen an old lady drive all the way down in the turning lane. I'm going, oh my gosh. You know, and you don't run into me, you know, you get by him, but what do you do? And it's funny, when we were coming back from Utah, we stopped to eat, and this guy circled around, and this car's coming, and we're going, well, somebody's going to die here. And luckily, the person coming at him, he just pulled out right in front of everybody, horn honked.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? And here's my judgment. There's only one way in and one way out. If they would have had a wreck, we would have to sit here longer.
Right. I'll tell you what, you put your name and your phone number on your vehicle,
Oh, yeah.
you get a lot nicer on the road. I'm like, please don't call my cell phone.
Yep, my hands have done some nasty things, and yeah. I agree with you, Rick. That's probably the
true.
worst judgment place that there is.
Well, that, or I suppose probably behind a computer screen. I suppose. I think that
Oh,
is
man.
probably contributed to people maybe being a little bit more bold in life. Maybe because it's so easy to judge people, right? Online, and it's like it's funny. I just was thinking about this. I saw there's a post that came out today. There's a class action lawsuit against the Archery Trade Association and a bunch of different manufacturers in the industry for price fixing and all this stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
So this guy gets on there and he's ranting and raving about how, you know, all these manufacturers are living on a high horse while the consumers are suffering because the prices are increasing dramatically and all this stuff. And so they're basically saying that the manufacturers are price fixing and they're ripping people off. And maybe there are some companies, I suppose, but in any case, so this guy was just talking about you know, all these like as if some of these executives like in the archery industry are like NBA basketball players, like they have private jets and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't normally chime in on these kinds of things because they just usually don't go well. But I just had to say something. Unless you've worked in the manufacturing space, I don't think the profit margins are as high as you think. And it's like there's a lot of different factors. You've got your federal excise tax that archery companies have to pay. You've got, you know, so that's 11% off the top of your profit right there. Then you've also got astronomical liability insurance, just because of the liability that comes with selling those types of items. And then on top of that, you've got consumers that want made in America. They want all these bells and whistles, and then they want lifetime warranty. You know what I mean? So I was like, maybe we should look at some of that being the driver. You know, the demands of the consumer is part of what's driving those costs up. You know, and then he just came at me hard, like having a bad day hard, and I was just like, whatever. I didn't even respond to it. I didn't even go at it. But it's just like, it is funny how, like, I feel like if I had been having that conversation with that individual in person, it wouldn't have come out the way it did. You know.
Yeah. No. And it's Rick 2.0 on is his handle here, folks? I'm just kidding.
You know, if you just read the comment sections, you know how some people have that witty humor? That's more like me. So I read it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. You know,
Yeah.
people are like, you're so insensitive. You know, it's just like,
it's a joke.
I know, but it's just the different personalities, and they're all judging each other, and then they're fighting on it. Like, and when you read it, you're like, this is so trivial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like, what are you? It doesn't even matter. You guys would get along, and you're just reacting based on your day.
Yeah,
essentially, and your personalities and how you respond to things. You know, I'm like, this is not serious. These people don't even know. Like, when you read, sometimes I just get. There was one of the best comment section. If I can find the post, I'll send it to you guys. But they analyzed South Dakota into, this is terrible. I can't, now that I'm thinking about what I'm about to say, but it was like the most likely city to get laid, right? It was based on how many bars. And it's like Sioux Falls are like 8 bars. Forget what this little like compilation that somebody threw, clearly not from South Dakota, right? Put out there. Just comments beyond. And I got lost. I was like, this is amazing. And it's like people were coming in like, I went to USD, I went to SDSU, that city's way more likely. And like the number one, I think, was like Aberdeen. And in the comments, everybody's like, well, I live there and I think it's great. I don't even see how this thing. And you're like, oh my God, there's nothing to do here. Of course, that's all we know. It's just totally different, right? But then you get people who take it so seriously. And like to strangers, and they argue and they're all judging each other, and then it gets all way out of control and it tail spins, and it's like, oh geez. But I mean, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the moderator, or not the moderator, but the originator of the post is just sitting back and just enjoying all of all of
I
the
threw this grenade into the internet.
All the content,
both good and bad.
All the comments,
all good.
Drop the bomb.
Yeah.
And walk away. Just like Elon's post when he left Trump, and he was like, oh yeah, he's in the Epstein files. It's like, boom, comment section. Oh man. Gosh, but yeah, so we all judge.
We do. And you were talking about the service industry that you guys were in the restaurant, and you want to know a tough one is like me being in the lumber industry. Like everybody wants the straightest board.
Yeah. It's true.
It's the way it is. And they don't want knots in it, and they want the straightest board. And
you would hate me. You would hate me.
And I have a few people who come up, do you have any straighter wood? I said, well, here's the deal. They're made out of trees. If you want the straightest board, you better get steel studs. It's, and I always say, are you a carpenter or a craftsman? A craftsman would get those to work.
Yeah. Just need to have the right people.
But it's just amazing the number of people that nothing's ever good enough for them. And then you got the other one, oh, this will work.
I don't ever complain, because there was one time I was in the lumber yard, and I don't complain. The guy was helping me, and he's like, well, we only have this many left. And he pulls them out, and he's like, there was one that was like pretty crooked. And I looked at it, he's like, is this okay? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess.
Well,
it's like, well, you want it or not? I was like, yeah, I guess I'll take it.
I gotta say, I'm the guy at Home Depot, and I'll have a pile of lumber out here in front of the normal pile, because I'm going through every single one of them, right? And I'll spend an hour till I get all the boards straight as can be. Rick's just but you know what always blows my mind is I love it when I get down to like, okay, every loose board, I've gone through them all, and now you've got a pile of them that are banded. And I love it when you pop the band, and 4 of the boards literally curl up into like the letter C. You're like, how is that even possible? It's in the pile. It's straight as can be. You pull up, and this is Home Depot, man. Like, you've seen the meme where they source all their 2x4s, and then there's a picture of like a bunch of super crooked trees. But yeah, I'm that guy. I'm sorry, Rick, but I will say,
and now he's judging
I will
us.
never put it on anybody else. Like, I'll sit and I'll go through the trouble of looking through them all myself. I'm not putting it on.
And then you mess up our piles.
Oh yeah, I leave them.
And that's right. So you want that delivered? Here's what I do when you want that delivered.
You can take this and shove it.
So you want me to deliver that wood, and you need like treated for plate, and you need all this other stuff. Guess where the plate's going to be? On the bottom. And I'm going to do that on purpose. I did this to one guy because he messed up all my piles.
Oh man. I
And
don't mess them up. Put 'em
well,
away.
he messed them up, and I took out everything he needed. First was all on the bottom. So you're going to have to mess up your piles too. And he never messed up my piles again.
Oh, well, lesson learned.
And for the record, Rick, I don't leave the piles. I'm just getting you fired up. That's all.
Geez, that's
He's like, don't
I do.
unorganize the boards.
I do kindly stack them back, but not like perfectly. But this brings up another thing too. Like I took a part-time job at Duluth Trading Company just to get their clothes, basically. And I used to, you'd go into a store and you'd pull up a shirt and you'd look at it, and then I would just like put it back down and just be like, whatever, they pay people to fold that stuff. After working at Duluth Trading Company for a little while, I was like, nope, never doing that again, because it is the most annoying thing. You're sitting there and they're just plain t-shirts. They have different colors. It's just a plain t-shirt. That's all it is. But ladies come in to buy shirts for their husbands, and they got to open them up and then throw it down, and every color, every size. You're just like, seriously, I just went through all that, lady.
Judging them.
Yes.
Judging the ladies.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
So now
It's true, because there's variations. Can be.
And you have a clothing store, so you maybe I'm guessing you get some of that stuff, but
a lot of it.
Oh my gosh, that's all I do is fold clothes. Just the whole time I'm there, just folding clothes.
Yeah, we'll have people try on the exact same shoe in the exact same size because it might fit different.
Really?
100%.
Oh my gosh, that would be fun.
Or pants or shirts, same exact thing, but this one might be different.
Well, here's
Suddenly
the deal.
It fits. Same size, but they're like, yes, fits great.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
It's a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. There can be variations. It's manufacturing. There is error, right? So be like, I feel like this one's just a little bit like snugger. I like it. Fine. I mean,
is that after they ate and before they ate?
Who knows? We don't serve enough alcohol.
Well, the one thing about it that you don't have to worry about is Ricky and I won't come into your store and try on clothes.
Well, yeah, you have 6 T's. You can. Jesse just bought a shirt from there the other day for the concert.
Oh boy! All right, Rick.
Yeah, then I'm going to check out the T-shirt.
Challenge accepted.
I'll go look through all the T-shirts, Ricky.
Yeah, we have guys that buy our hats.
And I mean, I'm folding them.
Yeah, no. That's so funny you bring that up, because when I first started working retail, I sucked. I sucked at folding T-shirts, and they fold them. I don't know how Duluth did it, if they were more square. These were narrow stacks like this, long, narrow. It is incredibly hard to fold T-shirts that skinny. And I will never forget, I folded a whole table, and I don't know how many were on there, but it was a lot. Okay. And my boss had come over, and she's like, this is not good. And she's like, you need to put effort. I was like, I am putting effort. I'm also trying to sell. You know what I mean? Sell. I was really good at sales. And I just looked at her. I was like, you didn't pay me to fold. You're not paying me to fold T-shirts. I was like, you're paying me to sell clothes. I was like, have the 17-year-old do this. This is not for me. I was like, I can't be good. I'm like, I cannot get better at this. There is no getting better. I failed miserably. It was awful.
I'll blame your mom.
Yeah. She would say, yeah, well, she never picked up her room. My room was a disaster, which is crazy. You'd never believe that now, but it was a disaster growing up.
And folding a cotton shirt is one thing, but when you get some of that performance wear, like I think that shirt that you're wearing, Rick, that material, it's like trying to fold a bowl of Jello. You're like, what? It's just you just
then you give up. Yes, you just like kind of tuck the sleeves in, put the logo out front, and you're just like, well, this is the best it's gonna get.
And then it slides off. It just slithers off onto the floor. Like, you cannot fold these.
And if you do get a nice tack, it never fails. It's like people hone in like a missile on that pile. You're like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. And then they grab it, and the whole stack just goes. Oh gosh.
Yeah. This was on the back of the chair before Ashley showed up because it can't be folded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you
See?
can't fold them.
Might as
Yeah.
well hang it.
Yep.
Hang them.
So it can be folded.
So,
That's right.
well,
Yeah.
I don't know what should the question be
For what? At the end
for
to
the
round
end,
this all up?
to round this all up?
Somebody get AI out.
Because I'll just say, when we were talking about climbing the mountain, people have climbed Everest and died. So, and they made poor decisions,
You know
and I
that.
don't judge them.
No.
That was what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what's a good question?
I'm not there yet. Somebody's gonna throw it.
Well,
out.
I know I need to follow the rule that I was talking about earlier, and I guess I'm gonna have to probably spend a day in a lumber yard now, just so I can
There you
understand the
go.
qualms and the struggles.
Because I've never heard. And then here, can you believe the price of a stud? Can you believe the price of wood?
I'm priceless, Rick.
It is just amazing. I'm going, oh, it has to get here. They have to do.
Yeah.
The price of wood is going up, but it isn't that much here, people.
Right.
Not like
Yeah.
it was in 2020.
Yeah, when people complain about the price of eggs, I was like, I used to pack those suckers. And I was like, you don't get paid enough to do that. They need
Well,
to charge more for packing eggs.
Before we finish here, now that you got me thinking, you just said eggs. The other judgmental thing that pisses me off is people talk about how they like their food. I know how I like my food. I know what I like. Why do you want it? I'm not going to eat. I'm
Bloody steak.
Well, I'm certainly not going to eat a bloody steak. You know that.
I do know that.
Yeah,
Well
but
done.
You
Only.
no, medium well. Little pink. I don't want to have to kill it
Clearly.
twice.
I am so judging right now. You don't even.
See?
That's right. See that, but that
judging you
pisses
hard
me
right
off because I'm not judging you guys because you like it the way you like it. You like the blood dripping out of your mouth, looking like Neanderthals.
Sounds kind of judgy.
It's true. You do get judged on that a lot. That's
I
okay.
do.
I like ketchup on some of my steak. I don't
But
even
why?
care.
But why would you want ketchup? If it's
I don't care. I
Is that-
grew up like we raised cattle and butchered them. Okay,
Yeah,
and I'm like, everybody's like, how can you eat ketchup with steak? So, you know what? Sometimes it tastes good. Okay,
I know.
It's-
I'm just.
I don't
kidding.
even care. You can judge me.
I'm a
You know,
57
we went to a
person.
really nice restaurant recently. Where was I? And I was like, can I get a sign of ketchup? And everybody looks. The waiter looks at me, and I was like, I don't really care. Just put it in the cup. I just want ketchup. Okay.
But I like 57,
Yeah.
so I have
Why
no
is that
problem with that.
acceptable? That's half ketchup,
I
is it
know.
not? It's like barbecue sauce, whatever,
But
right?
Food bothers me when people are judging you, like saying, "Why don't you have it this way?" Because I freaking don't like it that way. I just don't like it that way.
When I was
You know-
competing, I got judged for eating healthy. That
Mhm.
one's fun. Why are you eating chicken and broccoli?
Yeah.
Well, because I want to, because I feel like competing in bodybuilding. I don't know.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, don't you just want some French fries? Of course I do. Of course I do. I'm just choosing not to right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. You get judged regardless. I mean, I think this whole thing was to be a better person, and now I'm realizing how judgmental like I might be and with people around me.
Yeah.
I do got to say, Rick, like for years, I would get my burgers like medium rare, you know, and for whatever reason, it was just like I'm sure either I felt like maybe I'd get judged, or it was just like the way like if you're gonna eat a good burger, man, it's got to be, you know, you got to be able to taste it. You know, you don't want to cook all the flavor out of it. So for my entire life, that's how I ate burgers, and a sloppy mess. It's dripping all over the place. Your bun is like, you know. And then one day I was like, I'm tired of that, and I started ordering my burgers medium, and it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious.
This is so much better.
Because the
my
burger
bun's
you
not
were.
soggy.
Yeah.
There's not shit dripping all over my plate and getting all over my fries. You know?
But the burger you were eating was tiger meat. That's what that's called.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah. Tiger meat. That's a real thing.
I hear you. Jeez.
but I
But
can't.
no,
Medium well, Rick. Come on.
medium well.
It's charcoal briquette.
Nah.
He eats his elk meat that way too.
And guess what? Okay, here's the
Judged.
Thank you. I like being
Just-
judged here because we were in Big Sky. I ordered my steak medium well. And how many other people ordered theirs medium well that same night? 3, besides me, because they were being judged, and then I ordered it, and I set the example. Like, I don't give a shit what you guys say,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ordered ketchup that night too, and everybody's like, "What?"
and that's the way it was. And
do
but
that.
like
Partner
people
rule.
say, I like broccoli, I like cauliflower, I like the
You do?
occasion, yes, and I like the occasional Brussels sprout. I'm not a big Brussels sprout like everyday eater.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen you eat a Brussels sprout.
Yep.
Hmm.
And I like people don't think I like that stuff, but I do.
Oh,
I'm not just a hamburger
I know
french
you
fry
only eat
person.
some. Yeah, I know you eat some greens.
I eat greens every day.
Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I watched you eat a salad, I was like,
No dressing on my salad either. You want to be
Oh, damn.
judged? None.
"That's okay if you chew it enough. It tastes like water."
See, this is the same people that are saying they need to taste the meat because they need it raw, and they won't eat a salad without dressing.
Yeah,
There we
it's
go.
not for me.
Well,
I wouldn't
stop
eat.
being.
But I'm not judging you.
Yeah, you're not
I'm not
judging.
judging you because it's like it is what it is. I like what I like when it comes to food.
Well, I do too, but it's funny. Like, don't try to get me to eat beets. I'm not going to eat a damn beet.
Yeah,
I might.
Tastes like dirt.
They do taste like dirt.
yeah.
I've tried a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
People get mad at me. Not mad, judgmental. Like, I'm not going to go to a restaurant and order what? Fish or chicken?
True.
Never.
You know what the good thing about you is, like, I've been around you enough where I'm like, I don't even need to look at a menu. I can just tell you what you're gonna eat.
Yeah.
When we were in Salt Lake, I was like, everybody went around the table. Remember when we were doing family style?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're gonna have to get spaghetti and meatballs for Rick. And they're like, oh, are you serious? I said, yeah, just ask him what he wants on that whole menu. So Kelly from Badass goes, Rick, what do you want to eat? Spaghetti and meatballs.
Yep.
Oh, you see, it's never a question.
No,
So it's good.
that's
You
right.
like what you like.
Spaghetti and meatballs are good.
They are.
But you got to get those meatballs medium rare.
No.
No,
Me. They were well done and hot because that's the night I stuck that
the
whole
whole
one in my mouth.
pound meatball. This is no kidding. I was like, this is nuts. It's crazy.
Then they judged me again.
I'm gonna have to go back to the expo just so I can go out to eat with that group of people. It's always like, when BA comes to
Yeah.
town, and
Mhm.
oh my gosh, it is a blast. And it's always the Badass
Yeah.
crew and whoever else is in town. That's my favorite meal. Is when we all go to eat at that Italian restaurant. That's, I don't know. I don't even know what it's called. It's a chain in big cities where you order these
Buca?
mammoth-sized plates of
Buca,
stuff.
maybe?
Oh, yeah. What's the full name?
Buca de Pepo, I think.
Yeah, yep, that's
it. Yeah, we don't have those here.
No,
Yep, there's
But-
one in Indianapolis, dude. There's a bust of the Pope right in the middle of the table.
that's when we ate at the last time too.
Yeah, we got that table
Yep.
with the Pope in the middle.
Yep.
You ate there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did too. The
At
last
that
time
table.
we-
Not in Indianapolis in Salt Lake, but we ate at the Pope
We were
table.
at the Pope table.
Oh, so
there's
they
like
have one in Salt
15 of
Lake,
us.
too? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
was in was the room. It was circular room, and yeah, it was crazy.
The guy bet me. Well, the guy was in on the bet too that I couldn't put the meatball in my mouth too. Our
Oh, yeah.
waiter.
He did it. I think I have video proof. I'll post it.
Yeah, you should send it to me so I can plug it into the video.
We
version.
should.
That's-
I will. I'll look back. I'll find if you tell me what year that was. I'll look
Funny.
back and send it to you. Gosh.
So
Well, I don't know what
Yeah.
your last question's gonna be.
I don't know either. So-
Hmm.
Uh, I don't have any good question for us tonight. I had the answer. Like,
Well, that's okay. We got an hour, 20 minutes.
yeah, we do. So
We're golden.
yeah. So anyway, we don't have a last question here, folks. So as Ricky played the drums pretty good tonight.
I think it did all right.
Yeah.
Missed the beat a few times, but
Ashley's cowbell. I don't know about.
More cowbell.
I think we need more cowbell.
Cowbell.
And as for me, I turned into what's his name now? I can't even think of his name.
I don't know.
The AC/DC singer. Kind of
what
hoarse.
is that guy's name?
I don't know. It's
It
gonna be
was Bon Scott, but Bon Scott's dead. Brian Johnson. That's it. It's Brian Johnson.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't have to search it now.
So I turned into, kind of putting the meat mold in my mouth was dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
And hopefully people aren't thunderstruck here. So,
come on, one more. Back in Black.
Back in Black. But
I love what's the money song?
Well, here's the what do you do for money, honey? What do you do for
No.
That's what
No, now I'm gonna have to look it up.
I can't think of what it is. I know that's what do you do for money, honey? What do you do for kicks?
Money talks.
Yeah.
Money talks.
So
That doesn't really fit in.
Just as long as those judgmental people that are going to be listening to this,
that's fine.
as long as they don't think we're on our highway to hell.
If you are going to judge us, make sure you do it in the comments.
Can't wait to read them.
That's right, because hell's bells.
Yeah.
We will have a discussion about it on the next episode.
Right. Yes. So I hope I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy being with Rick Tastics. We miss Kelly, but he'll be back. Mm-hmm. And anyway, everybody have a wonderful day if they're listening to this, and thank you for listening. So as always, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and don't die rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hanson and Ricky Brule. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hanson and Ricky Brule. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.